everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Write Your Narrative. My guest today is John Dominé, who's up in New York. He's a freelance photographer who's been covering the street art scene for quite some time. So, John, how are you today? And welcome to the podcast.
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. You have started a project absolutely incredible a couple of years ago. There was a post on the Getty Instagram page during COVID asking some people to recreate some artwork. And you started a project then, that street art opera at the time.
It started out, as we were all in lockdown and bored and trying to figure out what to do with ourselves while we were, inside. And my friend Kaylin Talbot and I decided to get creative. And so we started doing, the project with the Getty Museum. It was just for a few days that we were dressing up as different works of art, kind of more classical pieces than that. And then I quickly decided to kind of change the route a little bit and decided that it would be a good time to pay tribute to a lot of the street artists whose works I've seen on the streets over the years. So it started out with basic, props and things that I had around the house. And then now it's kind of morphed into something where I get more elaborate with the costumes and the pieces and songs and all of that. So now currently I've done about 650 pieces so far. So
That is incredible. You portray those artists, those murals, but then you show the whole creative process. You draw on cardboard and then you paint your face and everything. This is really creative.
Well, thank you. As I say, it's something that, for me, it's a labor of love. I think there's some people who think it's it is a weird project. I think it's a wacky project. For me, it's really just to honor the work of the artists, and I try my best. I don't really think of myself as an artist myself, but I think my skills have gotten better over time just from drawing in that. But I like capturing the process and kind of going through it from beginning to end, because for me, I've always been a documentarian. Even on the streets, I'm always documenting the work. And so for myself, it's important to kind of document the way things have gone over the past few years for this project and kind of share that. Because I think people want to see, it's one thing to just show the final piece, but another when you can see, what actually went into it to get to that spot. So,
it's very easy to do some photographies. The buildings are beautiful. The paintings, those murals are absolutely incredible. But then you're creating something, you're giving a voice, you're giving a song to the theme. You're doing probably a lot of research. And I'm sure you have met a lot of these artists, not to say most of these artists. You know what they had in mind when they created those incredible murals.
Yeah, and I think even if I don't know what their intent was, I think art is subjective, and it's however it makes you respond. So even if I had some different vision for it, I think it's okay still that it doesn't necessarily have to align with what their thought of it was when they created the piece, because it speaks to you on an individual level. So
it does. And of course, the reason why you're on the podcast, you've been coming to Wynwood for years now, and most of the walls from the Wynwood Walls collection, you have recreated these walls, and not only Wynwood Walls, but from outside Wynwood. As we know, as we always say with the listeners, during Art Basel in early December, there's so much creativity, so much happening here in Wynwood. So this is a real source of inspiration for you, I'm sure.
For sure. No, it's definitely a hotbed of activity. And when I go down there each year, it's always great to see artists that I know from years past, but it's always great to be inspired by new work and new artists that I haven't seen that, just like New York and Miami has so many artists coming from all over the world who want to paint, during Art Basel, but at any time just to make their mark, either being the first time in the US or just to go to Miami and paint. So it's always great to see new artists and old ones as well.
The new artists and the old ones as well. It's always like a big family reunion. We all
Definitely.
Get together. We know so many people throughout the years, so it's always fun to see something. And it's great to see the evolution of the art they've been doing. I've seen 12 years ago, 15 years ago, some people really started in the street art world, in the art world. They were actually maybe sometime going to school still at the time, or they had a regular job, and then they were doing street art on the side. Now they became fully involved with the art community and they became professionals. So this is really something fun. Since you say you're a freelancer photographer, you've been traveling the country, maybe sometime outside of the US to discover some artists, and your work takes you there.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's, for me, I mean, I love travel for a lot of reasons, for just seeing new cultures, for seeing just the way people live differently in different parts of the world. But it's also great. Like I think what I find really great about the street art community and travel is that no matter where I go in the world, I'm always going to see murals or art painted by artists that I know, and it's like visiting a friend almost, because you feel like you're no longer alone in this country that you've never visited before, because this other person that you know and their work has been there and has left their mark. So it's really nice to I don't know, it gives me some comfort to see that. So
I can totally see that. Whenever I go back to France, and I'm going back in June, I'm sure I'm looking forward to see some walls painted by some of our friends, from our friends.
Right.
We know a lot of people. Like I said, this is a big family, and everybody is very, very supportive to each other. And quite frankly, the work you do, people love it too. Have you ever had an artist saying something?
Yeah, most have been very supportive, and especially people who I wouldn't have thought it would have resonated with, because like, I mean, I've had Shepard Ferry who he was blown away when he saw the piece that I did. It's a tribute that I'm paying, but at the same time, I know that I'm not an artist who's going to be making it the way, just like the piece that was created, but I'm doing my best to kind of pay tribute to it, I guess. And
yes, exactly.
Yeah, and he was just he was really blown away by it, and there's been a lot of other artists who I wouldn't have thought would be so supportive, but they were all like, "This is great, keep doing it," and so that makes me feel good, and it encourages me to do more work. I wouldn't say there's ever been a negative response. It's been more like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting," but for a couple artists, but by and large, most of them have been very supportive. So.
No, but what you do is very respectful for the work that they do on the street. You always mention the artists, like we have to, so we know that with the street artists, maybe more with the graffiti writers, there's some street rules that are unwritten, but then we kind of know. Have you actually done any pieces by some of the writers? Yeah,
I've done mostly the characters that they did, like Vers here. I did one of his spray paint his characters versus the actual letters themselves. So
yes, might be a little hard to do the letters. Also, maybe you can eventually animate some of these letters.
Realm, but I think I might try my hand at it one day. And actually, I did another graffiti writer, KTBT, KATBT. I don't know if you know him, but he's up here.
No, not
anyways. I did one of his too, but it was also once again a character from his piece. So,
this is easier to paint your face and to do the costume, whatever the representation is on the wall. So we mentioned the other day about some books that you've been doing, and now you're collecting. You did some photographies of your work. You kind of documenting the street art scene.
Yeah, as I said, I did make a book because the first year that I did it, I did one piece every day for 365 days. So that into a book, which is just the all of the pieces by the different artists, and so lots of them have signed it. And it's fun for me when I do come down to Miami, because a lot of artists will convene down there. So I'll bring the book and have some of them sign it. For me, it's just more it's kind of nice to close the loop that way, and then. They put if I haven't met them before, then they're like, "Oh, you're that guy," so
you that guy. Yes.
That's nice. So
well, but that's what it is sometimes. But even myself, I mean, I have so many artists. So whenever I come down to Wynwood, it's always very exciting to see someone new painting, some artists that you knew from years ago because you've been following them on Instagram. Like I have been following you for a few years now on Instagram without knowing you personally, but now. It really adds a different dimension once we get to know these artists. And most of them are super cool people. Like you mentioned, Shepard Ferry, well known as he can be, I mean, he's quite famous, but he's a real guy at the end of the day. So it's very exciting when you see someone on a wall painting and from a distance you say, oh, I think I know this work, but I never met the artist. And then sometimes, okay, there's something so new, so different. The way you're going to be creating all these new characters or these new painting is limited for you.
Well, and I think that is the great thing is because, I mean, I have done a lot up to this point, but there's always going to be new artists and ones that I may know now that I feel like they're, as you say, you see the evolution of their work, and each year you see them and it's getting better and better. And then you're like, oh, okay, well now, like there's certain artists who a few years ago, I wouldn't have necessarily considered doing their piece because I didn't think that it was developed yet to the point where I feel like they've created their style. They were just exploring, and now they're getting to a point where they, so, and I think it's really exciting for me to see when I see the transformation of some of these artists who you see their style really come through, and you'll be able to, it's once you start recognizing it on the street and you can say, oh, okay, now I know this is that artist because
I know,
their style and that. So it's very cool.
This is such and such and such artist.
Yeah.
So what was the inspiration when you call it the street art opera? I mean, this is because you do the music, it's a whole big production, what you do on the social media on Instagram.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Layla Seca, who's in Berkeley, California, she actually said, "Oh, I love what you're doing. You should call it, and it should be an opera." And I said, "Oh, well," it was kind of an interesting thing because you think of operas as being this very fanciful kind of highbrow kind of type of performance, but then street art isn't often thought of in that regard. So for me, it was kind of a neat juxtaposition to have the street art and the opera together because. I mean, I have done an opera as one song I used, but largely they're just really strange songs. I think it's very all over the place in terms of my musical process. It's a little bit
all over the place, but I mean, this is
from hip hop to
creative process. Yeah. How do you get to find all these songs?
Sometimes I just listen to them. There are some songs that I might like, and then most times I will think about the theme of the piece. And then I'll just put that keyword into like Spotify and kind of listen to songs and see what makes sense. These days I have truthfully been using ChatGPT. So I say I want to dress up as, blobs of paint or whatever and sing a song. And then they'll give me a list of all these songs that would be good choices to pair with it. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And then I listen to them and some of them are actually really good. So it works sometimes with that. It makes it easier for me rather than thinking, okay, what song would be good? At least I can narrow down my choices. So
we all listen to some music and there's always some words that stick into your mind.
But also some of the artists sometimes, because I send the pieces to the artists before I post them or telling them that I'm going to do it. And so some artists, like when I did the piece for Swoon, she actually was really excited about it, and she wanted to come up with the song, so she chose the song that I was doing.
Amazing. That's even like a collaboration.
Yeah, so it was kind of neat too. And actually it's interesting that you say that, because I think some of the artists even recently that been, they said, I love that you did this collaboration with me. And they think of it that way, that it is a collaboration, a forced one, but because I just decided to do it. But at the same time, they do kind of feel like we've collaborated on this together because they did the piece that inspired me to do the performance. And so it's exactly, it is a collaboration in some ways.
And they were themselves inspired by something, by someone, by an event. And that's what art is supposed to be doing, art and street art. Street art is on the street for everyone to enjoy, create some reaction. And this is what you do with your song. You're bringing those murals to life with your own emotion at a specific moment. Like we said that I've known some artists for 10, 12 years, and we've seen the evolution of their work. And that's why Winwood Walls is kind of renewing itself every year with a few walls. Of course, we have the major walls, the Shepherd Ferry, Futura, those people who were there at the very beginning. But every year they invite new artists to create some new work.
And you mentioned that they're inspired by things happening at the time. That's what I feel with a lot of the pieces. There's sometimes I may be thinking about going a certain direction with a piece, but then there are things happening in the world. Sometimes it influences even the song that's chosen or pieces that I'll choose because they seem to go along with what's happening with current affairs. And not that I'm necessarily very political. And I think in some ways doing this allows me to cope with the current situation of things because it allows me to go to a different space than reality in doing this. So
you said you've been traveling. You're originally from Switzerland.
Yeah, both my parents are. I was born here. I do go back to Switzerland often to see family, but I love traveling. But it is nice to go back and see family. So
how's the art scene over there?
Basel there has quite a bit of work. There's a town called Locht. It's a small town, and it used to be a town where they would make watches. And so the whole town was known as the watch village. But they also used, I guess, when they were making the watches at that time, there was some type of chemical, but a lot of people were getting sick from the radiation, right, of whatever they were using in there. So a lot of the murals, like Schock painted a mural that has kind of this glowing hands of a clock. Because it was basically to represent the exposure to the radium that was in the watch pieces. But there's a lot of beautiful work in that town or that village. So
all over Europe, the street art scene is very interesting to see. And once again, like we said, discover some new art. When we both have that passion, that we have an eye to discover those things. Down here in Wynwood, you're in Art Basel, there's always a huge group of Brazilian people with Binho that you represented. They all come from Sao Paulo. The art scene seems to be absolutely incredible over there.
Oh yeah, I went in October. Binho paints there and stuff. It's beautiful. I mean, there's so much there that they have on the walls. And it's just, I think by and large, I really love Brazilian artists anyways. I just think their style is so cool. Like Marcelo Ment, and then you have the two Belafé that they're now, but they're from Portugal, and just so many artists there in Brazil that I just love their style.
And there's so many. And Binho, like we always mention, I had him on the podcast. I mean, he's been coming to Wynwood since Wynwood is Wynwood, and he always traveled with his whole book and everything. He's such a character,
definitely.
Where is your next travel going to take you?
Yeah, locally, it's just to Denver next week. I do have a bigger trip to Chile and Argentina in July. So Valparaiso, so I think I'll see a lot of street art there. And
Denver also has a pretty large street art scene.
I go quite a bit there. So I love going to the Rhino district and just exploring. And so I'm sure I'll see plenty when I'm there. Yeah.
Plenty of new things. Like we say, I mean, street art is like one day it's up, the next day it's been tagged, and the third day, it might be gone.
Yeah, it's the beauty of it, I think, in that it is so ephemeral that you don't know if it's going to be there 5 minutes from now. So, if you can appreciate it, and I think that's part of it for me as a documentarian, is to try to capture those from a historical perspective and then to pay tribute to those if they're no longer around. A lot of the pieces I've done are still currently up, but there are some that there was a splash in the pan and they were here for a short time and then they're no longer there. So it's a very interesting community for sure.
It is a beautiful community that I absolutely love. Well, so whenever you come back to Miami, to Wynwood, most likely in December, I'm sure you're going to be here for Art Basel. I'm going to have to take you on a tour here in Fort Lauderdale, where we have some pretty special murals here too.
Yeah, I saw the recent batch, and I'm so bummed that I didn't get a chance to go down there and see it yet. So hopefully I'll get there soon and check it out.
Don't be a stranger.
Sounds good. I won't. Thank you so much.
And I'll take you on a tour because there's some really, really fun stuff.
Perfect. I'd like that. Yeah. So I think what's exciting for me recently is all of the rappelling that people are doing with the letters down the sides of the buildings. Yeah.
It's pretty incredible to see all these buildings they have painted. They started 2 years ago in Miami, and then the Twin Towers that were painted in Los Angeles, and this is beautiful. I just love it.
I love it.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, perfect.
So, John, thank you so much for that time. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. You are yourself an inspiration, definitely. I mean, it's something so fun to see, so fun to watch. I am waiting for the next video, and then going back to your Instagram feed, you can see some of the work. I mean, I discovered plenty of new artists, and I'm always very, very curious who's going to be the next your next victim.
Me too. Yeah, my next victim, exactly. Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right, John, thank you so much. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you very soon, hopefully down in Miami.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pascal.
Have a great day. Thank you so much
You
again.
too.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.